I will tell you that one of my favorite people on the planet is our next guest, and it's because he has introduced us to space.
Yep.
And he's introduced us to space as an addressable market for business. Can you believe that? That's the crazy part of this thing. I present you John Rood from Momentus. Coming to us live from space right now. Dude, I gotta tell you, you got the crew gets giddy when you're coming on. We're gonna get you in studio at some point. John and I were talking just for a second before the shows today, and we were talking about the fact that never did any one of us think about. I mean, you think about a technology addressable market, or cell phones, or what's the addressable market for payment systems, or even ugly picnic shirts like James and Mark and Costa are wearing today. Wow. But you don't think about space as an addressable market, and it's one of those things, John, where if you start doing the math on it, you're saying this can't be right, and it is right. Talk about that, because before we get into what you guys do, there is a market size of the space industry, and it goes in the high billions. Talk about that, John. Great to have you, by the way.
Oh, it's fantastic to be on the show, and I love that intro. Actually, that music it makes me feel like I got to live up to a big intro like that.
Yeah, because it could have been Ozzie Smith singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" or
true.
Homer Simpson.
When I was 17.
Yeah.
We reserve the good stuff for you. But talk about that, because that's something that we don't think about ever. We don't think about the addressable market of space.
Well, what's changed in the last few years is that it used to be space was really exotic, didn't apply to everyday life, but you're seeing applications be developed that are really competitive with those on Earth, like Starlink, basically Wi-Fi from space that Elon Musk's SpaceX is doing to serve rural areas. But what that means in terms of dollar terms is the number of satellites and the size of that market measured in dollars is really growing. According to Space Foundation, currently, the size of the space economy is $469 billion. Now, Bank of America predicts it'll grow to be $1 trillion by 2040. They're the smallest of the long-term estimates. Others, like Morgan Stanley and others, have even larger numbers for that space economy. And it's changing the composition of it, where you're seeing large numbers of small satellites. As I mentioned on our earlier broadcast, there's been over 1,000 put in space this year alone. And of those, they're small satellites. According to space.com, 94% of the ones being put in space are classified as small satellites, not these huge car-sized items.
So basically, if I were to put it in layman's terms, you guys are launching a small spacecraft into orbit, and from there you are deploying other microsatellites, other communications equipment, and so on and so forth. And this is on a commercial basis, not a government basis necessarily. Talk about that.
It is a commercial model, and what's being shown here in the video, that's a representation of a SpaceX launch. They're launching roughly every week now. I mean, it used to be there were 4 or 5, maybe 10 launches a year that would do commercial. Now, I mean, quite literally, just one company alone is going to do over 50 this year predicted. And so there's a commercial ride to space, and then once you get there, because the satellites have become so much smaller and the ability to launch them has come down by the cost to launch them has come down by over 95%, and there's lots of availability, that drives you to needing essentially a space truck. And that's where we aspire to be the UPS of space, or the FedEx of space, taking you from the port or the destination where the cargo is consolidated and taking on that last mile to just where you want to be in space.
Hey, John Rood, by the way, is our guest, CEO of Momentus. They are publicly traded under the stock symbol MNTS. You can go to momentus.space. When you say small satellite, Bud, what are we talking about? Is it breadbox size, is it Volkswagen size, or it's softball size?
Well, for a microsatellite, it's usually 100 to 200 kilograms. Think like a small refrigerator that you might have, or a large microwave oven. About that size.
About the size of Costa, right? About the size of Mike Costa. Thinks about the size of Mike. Who wouldn't want it? Look at Palais. We have Dave Palais. Dave Palais is our co-host today.
That's a
Dave
big
Palais,
rocket.
another national sports figure. who wouldn't pay good money? Because
To launch me into space?
Yes, I'm
I know.
talking about.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm talking about.
Dave would.
Come on. 3, 2, there we go. There he is. And then followed by, I'm sorry. Okay. Hey, John, you guys made significant progress in the last year, becoming publicly traded on NASDAQ. The eyeballs on you are probably larger than before, but at the same time, you're still chugging along with the same business model, and now it's growing exponentially. Is that because of NASDAQ, or is that because you guys are just deploying everything you thought you were going to deploy originally?
Well, going public on the NASDAQ is a mixed blessing. It gets you more attention, but it also comes with a big burden to be the life as a public company. And so we've been chugging away with that, but mostly I think where we're getting more attention from customers or investors is making progress conquering our challenges. A year ago, we said we were going to do our first launch. We've now done it in May 25th. We've put 8 satellites in orbit, and our Vigoride vehicle, the first one, is above us now, still orbiting in low Earth orbit. We're getting the next one ready to launch in December, and we'll probably ship it off kind of late October here is our plan, to go to Cape Canaveral for launch on the next SpaceX rideshare mission, which is targeted for early December.
Wow.
John, not equating it to Sputnik in the Apollo program, but is there a space race now in this, pardon the pun, space?
Yeah, commercially, right?
Yeah.
There is. There's a lot of competition and new entrants coming all the time with different ideas or different ways essentially to build a better mousetrap. And so you see competition with U.S. companies, foreign companies. In some cases, foreign governments are kind of subsidizing their local companies through contracts and other things like that. They don't call it a subsidy, but it's essentially government support. And so there is a race, and there's a race to see who can develop the market earliest and be an early mover. That's our ambition. I mean, frankly, our ambition is to be the market leader in our segment. We're not there yet, but that's the plan.
John, for you guys, and you mentioned this last time, but I want to get some clarity on it. Next 18 months looks like A, next 5 years looks like B. Talk about really the big difference between what's happening now and what's happening 5 years from now.
For us, our plan is to get into a steady cadence. The vehicle that we're going to fly in December is the first of our production configuration block. And our plan after that is it gives you a lot more modularity, it gives us more flexibility, a softer ride with less vibration for our customers to space. So our plan is to continue with that block basically through the remainder of 2023. We've booked ports on all of the SpaceX rideshare missions. There's 3 of them in 2023. And so hopefully over the next 18 months, we'll do at least 4 to 5 launches on a pretty steady cadence where we want to show predictability to our customers, have an easy access to space option available to them, and then bring our costs down incrementally as we fill up more essentially of the airplane. If this was a passenger airplane, the more you can fill it full, the better your unit economics are. And so that's where we need to continue to progress and attract more customers as we get more flight heritage and show what we can do.
Hey, John.
So that's kind of the next 18 months.
So, John, here's my question for you. So before I let you out today, put the Buck Rogers hat on here. I mean, what can we expect to see as far as payloads go in the near future that would have been unthinkable, let's say, a few years ago?
Well, for example, communications is a big limiting factor. There's so much data, and we're living in the information age, as you know, and so it just continues to exponentially grow. Well, the way that we send things, remember when we were kids, we'd see live via satellite, we can watch television.
Right.
Well, it's still done that way, but you bounce signals from your Earth ground station to a satellite, reflect it back to Earth, and then if you want to go all the way around the Earth, you kind of ping pong this thing all the way around the globe. Well, a lot of the new things that are both commercial and the government are doing is that you keep that data in space and communicate from one satellite to another, and you can get around the globe faster, especially using things like laser communications, not radio waves.
Wow.
And so you're going to see an exponential growth then in what you can do with all that data, whether it's for broadcast, video, high bandwidth comms to support things like Internet of Things.
Yeah.
So there's some cool stuff going on there, and also using very small satellites, think the size of like a tennis ball can size or a bread box, where you can do remote sensing and do things on there.
I got to tell you, man, we need you in here. Get here, John. Come on. It's a hop, skip, and a jump. God. Wait till John develops the Costa 13 satellite. Woo. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. John Rood.
What a payload.
Momentus. MMTF.